Is it too early in the year to already be having a crisis over reading? It's never too early. Hey, hi, hello, welcome back to my channel. I'm Jesse, and today I'm doing a book tag. The book tag that we're doing today is the Quarter Year Crisis, and this tag was created by Roisin's Reading. I will leave a link down below to her channel and her original video. This is essentially similar to the mid-year book freakout tag. That tag is obviously middle of the year freakout, middle of the year crisis, but this tag is the first quarter of the year crisis. Again, is it too early to be having a book crisis? Probably, but am I having a crisis? Actually, it's been pretty chill. This should be retitled as the Quarter Year Chill Book Tag. We're going to be going over some of my favorites so far, some of the worst books so far. We're going to be going over some of the goals that I've yet to complete, some goals that I've been failing at, lots and lots and lots of bookish things. Let's get started. How many books have you read so far this year? I know the amount of books that you read throughout the year should not matter. If you've only read one book so far this year, that's amazing. If you've read 20 books so far this year, that's amazing. If you've read 150 books so far this year, please share your secret as to how you're doing it, because I want that recipe. I want whatever you're drinking. I want the answers to your test. But I will say I am pretty proud of my book count so far. I've read a total of 30 books, which I feel like is pretty solid. Mind you, I have read a lot of graphic novels. I have read a lot of novellas. Not that that matters at all, but I do want to point out the fact that like I have read some shorter books, and I have read some books that are like easy and quick to get through. I set my book goal at 80 at the beginning of the year, and I feel like I'm on track to reach that, so I'm super excited about that. Have you already found a book that you think might be your 2024 favorite? If so, what is that book? I have in fact found a new favorite. It's a book that I'm trying to make my personality. I want everyone ever to read this book, and I feel like you guys probably already know the book in question. But if you don't know the book in question, it's a River Enchanted, y'all. This book, it has my heart. The basic description for this book, or the elevator pitch, if you will, in this book, it takes place on an island where these girls begin going missing. We follow quite a few characters in this book, but we're mostly following Adara and Jack. They used to have a bit of a rivalry situation. They didn't get along that well, and they're setting their differences aside in order to work together to find the missing girls. Their theory is that the spirits are behind the missing girls, and in order to summon them, we've got Jack, who is a bard. He's going to play music for them and bring them out, and they're going to question the spirits. Not only does the book have this incredible premise, but the writing style is top tier. The atmosphere is incredible, and it's honestly one of those books where I felt transfixed by it. Like, I felt like I completely melted into this book. That was the experience I had. Like, I had this like almost out-of-body experience where I felt like I was fully being teleported into this book every time I picked it up and read it, and I hadn't had that experience in so long, so to have a book like this move me in that way, it felt so good. We delve deep into each and every character, so we really get to know the ins and outs of them, and I love that about it. I will say it is a much more slow-moving story, so if you're not a fan of like slower-paced books, you might not really jive with this one. I personally ate it up, and I felt like even though it was slow moving, that pace for me matched really well with the story. I really loved it. I highly recommend it. I definitely need to pick up the sequel ASAP. I feel like if I wait too long, all the things that happen in this book are going to be like a little bit murky in my mind, and I won't remember everything, which will force me into a reread situation with this book. But like also maybe I'm like sabotaging myself so that I will get the chance to reread this book because I already want to reread it. I've also been a little bit hesitant to read the second book because I don't want the second book to ruin my experience with this book. There's always that fear with me in going into a sequel, going into the second book in a series, that it's going to fall into second book slump. And also this is a duology situation, and there's always that fear that the second and final book in a duology is not going to match up with the first book, or it's going to feel like it didn't need to be a duology at all. So I have had a lot of you guys in my comments saying that the second book is just as good, if not better than the first book, so that is promising, but I'm still fearful. I can't help that. A book you read that wasn't quite a 5-star read. For this one, I'm going with a book that I picked up from the library and read, so I don't physically have it. I do want to buy it at some point because I really enjoyed it. The book in question is Untethered Sky. This is a novella situation, and in this story we are following our main character Esther, whose family has been killed by this manticore, which is a monster within this world, and Esther decides to basically dedicate her life life to training these creatures that hunt the manticore and take them down. There was something so enchanting about this book from beginning to end. By the end of it, I was hoping that this would be a novella series situation because I just wanted more from the world, more from the characters. I know that I'm the worst when it comes to series, but I hardly ever leave a book being like, I want this to be a series. And this is a situation where I was like, I want this to be a series. There's a complex family dynamic woven in. There's so many friendships that our main character makes along the way. And those bonds are just so strong because they're all going through the same thing. They're training these bird-like creatures to hunt the manticore. And throughout that process, they just like can't help but grow closer together. I also just like loved the training aspect. I loved seeing our main character interact with these creatures and seeing the process of them growing a bond and them going out and hunting the manticore. There were so many tense and on the edge of your seat scenes, and I just left it wanting more. But as far as I can tell, I don't think that the author has any plans to expand this into a series, so she basically has crushed my dreams. Thanks a lot, Fondly. This book definitely pushed the Jade City trilogy up on my TBR list, and I desperately need to get around to those books, because I've heard literally nothing but great things about those, so the fact that I loved this hopefully means that I will also love that trilogy. Any one-star books or least favorite books of the year so far? While I've been having an amazing reading year, and I've been reading a lot of great books, there's also always going to be some bad eggs in the mix, so of course I've had quite a few books that just did not hit at all. Honestly, I will say I've gotten quite a bit better at DNFing books this year, so I have prevented myself from like fully consuming some spoiled eggs, but unfortunately I have found myself in moments forcing myself to read some books that ended up being one-star reads. Let me just go through a few of them. We've got The Famous Magician. Basically, in this book, an author is offered a deal with the devil in exchange for writing and reading. He can have like world domination, and we follow that journey. It just was really lackluster, and I just did not get anything out of it. I am in the minority though with this. Like, I went on Goodreads after I read it, and so many people were like, oh my gosh, this is amazing, so good. It was one of those situations where like, did we read the same book? I'm not sure we read the same book. To each their own though, like no shade, no tea. I just had such a different experience with this book. Nothing but blackened teeth. This book was disastrous. It's about a group of friends who stay in a haunted house, essentially. That's kind of just like a vague description. Obviously there's more to it, but it was just not the vibe. I feel like the characters in particular cause this book to fall into such an irritating place. All the characters in this book are incredibly unlikable, and I feel like for me there has to be like a few redeemable qualities with unlikable characters, and I just did not find any redeemable qualities with these characters. I also feel like when you have unlikable characters, you have to balance them out with likable characters, and nobody was likable in this book. Nobody. So it just made for such a frustrating reading experience, and then also the plot, like, don't even get me started. And In the Night House by Joe Nesbo. It's about this boy who witnesses his friend being sucked into a telephone at a telephone booth. This book felt like it was almost going to go into like a Goosebumps but for adults vibe, which like had it like fully kind of veered off into that lane, I would have been down for it, but like it just was not good. Not good at all. The first part of the story is the weakest part of the story, and it takes up a majority of the book. And the second and third part of the story kind of try to bring in elements to make up for that first part, but it just doesn't work. There's not enough time in those two sections to like make up for the lackluster first part. Thankfully, I got all of those books from the library, so I did not waste my money on these books. What's your most read genre so far? I've definitely read a rather mixed bag of genres this year, which is exciting to me. I always love kind of like making sure that I'm reading lots of different things. I don't ever want to just be reading one genre only, even though I definitely have eras where I'm like hyper fixated on one single genre. But going through my Goodreads, I'm surprised to find that I've read a lot of fantasy this year. That's like my main genre this year is fantasy, so I'm back in my fantasy era. I've been really wanting to get back to fantasy for a long time now, and I feel like I kind of like unintentionally found myself back in the fantasy lane, which is exciting. I've read things like Fourth Wing, A River Enchanted, Untethered Sky, Godkiller, Gilded, Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies, The Lamb Will Slaughter the Lion, The Devil Makes Three, Nothing Special. I feel like that list also shows that I've been reading like a mixed bag of fantasy as well. Like I haven't been only reading urban fantasy or high fantasy. I've been reading like a wide range of fantasy, which is really nice. Let me know your most read genre so far this year, because I'm curious now. Anybody else back in their fantasy era? What's a book that that surprised you? I honestly feel like Happy Place was very surprising to me. I was shocked by how much I loved this book. Now, obviously, Emily Henry is like a very hyped up author. She's a very well-loved author, but I had read Book Lover by her, and while I really enjoyed that book, I wasn't like die-hard obsessed with it like a lot of people are. So going into this book, I just felt fine about her as an author, and I didn't have very many expectations going into it. Next thing I know, I'm in a full-on love situation with this book. I love Happy Place. It just did everything that I want in a romance book so well. I found myself being so invested in this broken relationship and just rooting for the characters to find their way back to resolution. The friendship group was one of my favorite aspects of this book. I feel like it reminded me of my own friendship group, so reading about it, I just found myself just like so into it and relating to all the different dynamics within it. And then I also just really loved the journey that the main character is on. She is kind of in a place where she just like doesn't know what she wants in life, and she's afraid to kind of like face that and challenge herself to find what's gonna truly make her happy. And that can sometimes be a really hard thing to do, especially when you're like fully wrapped up in a career and it's not making you happy and you need to choose happiness for yourself. That can be really, really difficult, and I just loved following that journey as well. I highly recommend Happy Place. I don't think it's necessarily a book that's gonna like work for everybody, but it really, really worked for me. Clearly, I'm in a love situation with this book now. What's a book that came out in 2024 that you've yet to read but really want to get around to? Mislaid in Parts Half Known is one that I desperately need to get my hands on. I've been meaning to pick it up for a while now, but because of my book buying ban, I just like haven't prioritized it, but I'm definitely going to be getting it soon. This one has a dinosaur element, and I feel like lately I've been in a dinosaur mood. I've been watching all the Jurassic Park and Jurassic World movies for the first time, and it just like has me wanting to read all the dinosaur books. So if you have any dinosaur book recommendations for me, drop some down below in the comments. I'm ready for my dinosaur book era. What's one goal that you made at the beginning of the year that you're succeeding at? I feel like the thing that I've kept up with the most is my book buying ban. I've somehow been able to like stick to it pretty easily, and I was not expecting that for myself because it was a big shift. I've had to do a lot of work to just like completely shift myself out of this like buy every book I want mindset, which I know is like so privileged to say, but like I honestly was in a place where I was like, I want it, I'm buying it. But I've definitely been so better this year. My read 3, buy 1 and my unhaul 2, bring 1 in method has been working out so well for me. And I also have just been like utilizing the library. And I feel like I've just like unlocked a newfound love for the library. I know I'm like super late to the party, but like I feel like that's a party that you can never be late to, you know? Like it's never too late to get a library card and utilize your library. Now, obviously not everybody has like the best library system, but like the library in my area is amazing. I've been like so amazed by just how fantastic my library, my local library is. And I feel like now that I've made that shift, like I don't see myself ever going back to like a crazy book buying mindset. Like I don't see that for myself. That's not to say that I'm gonna stop buying books because like that's not happening. But I feel like it's so nice to like get a book from the library, read it, and if I love it, then I'll buy it. Like that method just makes so much sense. Why have I not been utilizing this method? You know what? We're not going to question it. We're just going to be happy that we are in our library era. I need to stop saying era. It's overused, but like I can't stop saying it. What's a goal that you made that you need to focus on more? I feel like there's so many goals I've been failing at, to be honest. I've definitely not kept up with my read 100 pages a day goal. I've definitely gotten lazy with that. And then I also have been really bad about my reading journal. And by really bad, I mean, I haven't even started on the reading journal yet. So maybe reading journals are just not for me. Maybe that's like my next thing that I need to work on is unpacking the fact that like I just can't keep up with a reading journal. I also don't feel like I necessarily need to keep up with a reading journal, but like I love the idea of like an artsy reading journal. I love being creative in that way and like doing crafts and things. Like I might not be good at them, but like I love a crafty moment. Finally, recommend a new to you booktuber, bookstagrammer, or book talker. I'm gonna start with Tia. She was new to me this year and I read one of her worst books of 2023. And that was like my way of being introduced to her channel was by reading one of her worst books, which is probably not the best way to like get to know somebody's reading taste. But I will say we matched up pretty well when it came to our thoughts on that specific book that I read. So I will recommend her channel. And I'm also going to recommend L Space Books. I just found their channel literally this morning and I like the vibe. So I'm just going to shout them out. Go check out their channels, give them some love. I will link both of them down below. That is it for the quarter year crisis book tag. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. I want to hear from you guys down below in the comments. How are you doing on your book goals? Do you have any new favorite books? Do you have any new least favorite books? books, let me know all the tea down below in the comments. If you like this video, be sure to go and hit that like button. If you want to see more bookish content from me, be sure to go and hit subscribe or go and hit that bell icon and you'll be notified every time I post new videos. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope your day is bright, that tomorrow is brighter. Keep reading what your heart desires, and I will see you soon with a new video. Bye.